Karen Whitfield stood in her pajamas at 6:47 am, coffee mug frozen halfway to her lips, staring at the sparkling disaster that had once been her prize-winning pool lights. Shards of colored glass floated like confetti in the chlorinated water, each piece catching the morning sun and throwing rainbow prisms across her perfectly manicured lawn. "Those jealous bastards," she whispered, then immediately looked around to make sure none of the neighbors had heard her curse. As president of the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association, she had a reputation to maintain. But reputation be damned, someone was going to pay for this. Karen had spent 3 months and $12,000 installing those custom underwater AEE fixtures. They weren't just pool lights, they were a statement. Every evening at precisely 7 o'clock, her backyard transformed into a technicolor wonderland that could be seen from 3 streets away. The lights, synchronized to music, cycled through seasonal patterns, and, most importantly, made every other house in the neighborhood look pathetically ordinary. She'd won the monthly Neighborhood Enhancement Award 4 times running. The voting wasn't even close. Setting down her mug with shaking hands, Karen marched to her home office and pulled out the thick binder labeled HOA VILAATIONs. Her fingers flew through the tabs. Unauthorized paint colors, mailbox infractions, lawn height violations. She knew exactly who had motive. The Hendersons at 42 Maple Street had received 3 citations last month alone. Their garden gnome was 2 inches taller than regulation height. Their mailbox post needed repainting, and someone, definitely them, had been parking their recycling bins on the street 12 hours before pickup instead of the regulation 8 hours. Then there were the Patels at 18 Oak Drive. They'd had the audacity to question her interpretation of the natural landscaping clause at last month's board meeting. Karen had shut that down quickly, but she'd seen the resentment in their eyes. And don't get her started on the new couple at 7 Birch Lane, the Johnstons. They'd moved in 2 months ago and hadn't even attended a single HOA meeting. Karen had issued them 5 violations already. Unauthorized door color. Burgundy was not on the approved palette. Failure to display house numbers in regulation font. And, most egregiously, they'd had the nerve to install a basketball hoop without architectural committee approval. Karen grabbed her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found Jim Morrison, security consultant. Jim had installed cameras for 3 other board members after the great mailbox vandalism incident of 2022. "Jim, this is Karen Whitfield. I need cameras installed today. Full perimeter coverage, night vision, motion detection, the works." "Whoa." Karen slowed down. "What happened?" "Vandalism. Destruction of property. A direct attack on the integrity of our community standards." She was pacing now, her voice rising. "Someone destroyed my pool lighting system, and I'm going to find out who." "Okay, I can be there this afternoon." "This morning, Jim. This is an emergency." After hanging up, Karen stood at her kitchen window, surveying the neighborhood like a general planning a siege. Each house held potential enemies. Each perfectly maintained lawn hid jealous hearts. Each regulation height mailbox belonged to someone who secretly resented her dedication to community excellence. Her phone buzzed with a text from her daughter. "Mom, saw the next door post about your pool lights. Maybe it was just teenagers." "Teenagers?" Karen snorted. This wasn't random vandalism. This was personal. This was war. She grabbed her HOA clipboard and headed for the door. Time for some impromptu wellness checks on her neighbors. Nothing like a surprise visit to gauge reactions and gather intelligence. But first, she needed to document everything. Photos, measurements, estimated replacement costs. By the time she was done, whoever did this would face the full weight of HOA justice and Karen Whitfield's particular brand of suburban vengeance. The war for Willowbrook Estates was about to begin, and Karen had no intention of losing. Karen stood slowly, her voice deadly calm. "I see. So instead of supporting their president during a crisis, they're staging a coup." "It's not a coup," Linda protested. "It's concerned neighbors who think maybe you've lost perspective." "Perspective?" Karen laughed, but it sounded harsh even to her own ears. My perspective is 15 years of maintaining the highest property values in the county. My perspective is award-winning community standards. My perspective is intimidating a new mother about her baby being criminal cover. Margaret interrupted. Karen, listen to yourself. After they left, Karen stood alone in her pristine house, surrounded by evidence of her investigation and the weight of her isolation. For the first time in years, she felt uncertain. Her phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. How does it feel to be the problem everyone wants to solve? Karen sank into her chair, staring at the words. Around her, framed certificates celebrated her years of community service. Neighborhood Excellence Award, Outstanding Leadership Recognition, Community Volunteer of the Year. Had it all been a lie? She walked to her backyard, where the empty pool stared back at her like an accusation. Without the lights, it looked ordinary, just a hole filled with water, like any other pool in any other neighborhood. But as she stood there, something shifted in her chest. Not defeat, determination. If they wanted to remove her, they'd have to do it properly. She'd follow every procedure, cite every regulation, and make them work for it. Karen Whitfield wasn't going down without a fight. She grabbed her phone and called Jim Morrison. Jim? I need you to check those camera recordings from last night. All of them. And I want copies sent to my lawyer. Karen, are you sure you want to? I'm sure I want to know who's been playing games in my neighborhood. And Jim, install audio recording too. If there's going to be a war, I want to hear every word. As the sun set over Willowbrook Estates, Karen stood at her window, watching lights flicker on in houses across the neighborhood. Tomorrow night's board meeting would determine her fate, but tonight, she had work to do. Somewhere out there was her enemy, someone who thought they could destroy what she'd built and walk away clean. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. But first, she needed to review those security recordings, because something was nagging at her, a detail she'd missed, a pattern she hadn't seen. The war for Willowbrook Estates was far from over, and Karen Whitfield's greatest battle was yet to come. 3 hours later, Karen had transformed her dining room into a command center that would make a detective jealous. Photos of the crime scene covered the mahogany table, annotated with red pen and connected by yarn like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. Her laptop displayed property records, violation histories, and a detailed neighborhood map marked with colored pins indicating suspects, witnesses, and potential allies. The security camera installation had gone smoothly, too smoothly, which only confirmed Karen's suspicions that this attack had been carefully planned to avoid detection. Mrs. Whitfield. Jim Morrison wiped his hands on a rag, having just finished the last camera. I've got to ask, don't you think this might be overkill? I mean, it's probably just kids. Karen fixed him with the same withering stare that had silenced countless homeowners at board meetings. Jim, in 15 years as HOA president, I've learned that there's no such thing as just kids when it comes to property destruction. This was calculated, methodical. Someone knew exactly when I wouldn't be watching. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed Margaret Chen, board member. Karen, I just heard. This is terrible. Do you need anything? I need loyalty, Margaret, and information. Karen's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Who've you heard complaining about the pool lights? A pause. Well, I mean, there have been some comments. Nothing serious. What kind of comments? The Hendersons mentioned they were a bit bright, and the Johnstons asked if there were regulations about light pollution. But Karen, that doesn't mean light pollution. Karen's grip tightened on the phone. My award-winning landscape lighting is pollution. After ending the call, Karen grabbed her violation clipboard and headed straight for 7 Birch Lane. The Johnstons' house sat at the end of the cul-de-sac, their burgundy door a daily affront to community standards. Karen had been patient with these newcomers, but clearly they'd mistaken her courtesy for weakness. She rang the doorbell with authority. 3 sharp, evenly spaced chimes. Sarah Johnston answered, wearing yoga pants and looking harried. Behind her, a toddler was screaming about breakfast. Oh, hi, Mrs. Whitfield. Is everything okay? That depends entirely on your definition of okay, Sarah. Karen consulted her clipboard with theatrical precision. I'm conducting a neighborhood safety survey regarding last night's vandalism incident. Were you home between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m.? Sarah's confusion looked genuine. Vandalism? What happened? Someone destroyed $12,000 worth of professionally installed pool lighting. I'm asking all residents about their whereabouts. We were home, but we didn't hear anything. Our bedroom faces the other direction, and honestly, with the baby. Karen made a note. Crying babies can be excellent cover for criminal activity. Very convenient timing. Sarah's expression shifted from confusion to irritation. Are you seriously suggesting our 3-month-old is part of some conspiracy? I'm suggesting that your family has shown a concerning pattern of disregard for community standards. The unauthorized door color, the basketball hoop, the failure to attend mandatory board meetings. Mandatory? The welcome packet said they were optional. Karen's pen clicked ominously. Everything is mandatory when it comes to maintaining property values, Sarah. A lesson you're about to learn. Karen stared at the anonymous message until her hands trembled. 27 years in Willowbrook Estates, 15 as HOA president, and she'd never felt truly threatened. Annoyed, yes. Challenged, occasionally. But never hunted. She screenshot the message and immediately called Detective Rodriguez, whom she'd worked with during the Great Mailbox vandalism incident. Detective, this has escalated beyond simple property damage. I'm receiving anonymous threats. Mrs. Whitfield, I understand you're upset, but one vague text doesn't constitute. This is clearly part of a coordinated campaign to undermine community leadership. First they destroy my property, now they're attempting intimidation. A long sigh. I'll add it to the report, but Karen, you might want to consider that whoever did this might just want you to back off. Back off? Karen's voice pitched higher. Detective, backing off is how neighborhoods fall apart. It's how property values plummet and communities die. After hanging up, Karen sat in her command center, studying the evidence with laser focus. The broken glass pattern suggested multiple impact points, not random teenage vandalism, but deliberate, systematic destruction. The timing indicated inside knowledge of her schedule. The anonymous message proved premeditation. This was personal. Her doorbell rang at exactly 2:47 p.m. Through the peephole, she saw Margaret Chen flanked by 2 other board members, Tom Walsh and Linda Morrison. We need to talk, Margaret said the moment Karen opened the door. They filed into her living room with the solemnity of an intervention. Karen offered coffee, but no one accepted. Karen, Margaret began carefully, we're concerned about your reaction to this incident. My reaction to criminal vandalism? I should think you'd be more concerned about the criminals. Tom shifted uncomfortably. The thing is, we've been getting calls. Neighbors feeling harassed. The Johnstons are talking about filing a complaint. For what? Asking legitimate questions about their whereabouts during a crime. You accused their baby of being criminal cover, Linda said quietly. Karen felt the familiar surge of righteous indignation. I made an observation about convenient timing. If they interpreted that as accusation, perhaps they have guilty consciences. Karen. Margaret's voice carried a warning. We've been friends for over a decade. I'm trying to help you here. The board is meeting tomorrow night for an emergency session. About the vandalism investigation. Good. It's about time we took security seriously. The 3 exchanged glances. Tom cleared his throat. About your conduct as president. There's going to be a vote of no confidence. The words hit Karen like ice water. Excuse me. 7 homeowners have signed a petition requesting your removal. After today's interviews, 3 more have indicated support. 20 minutes later, Karen stood outside the Henderson house, studying their garden gnome with renewed suspicion. At exactly 2 1/8 inches over regulation height, it represented everything wrong with Willowbrook Estates. But was it also evidence of a criminal mindset? Frank, she called toward the garage, where Frank Henderson was pretending to organize tools. I need to speak with you. Frank emerged slowly, like a man walking to his execution. Morning, Karen. Beautiful day. Beautiful days don't prepare vandalized property, Frank. Someone destroyed my pool lighting system last night. Where were you between 11 and 6? Asleep? Like normal people. Frank's jaw tightened. Karen, I know you think one of us neighbors did this, but maybe you should consider that not everything is about HOA politics. Everything in this neighborhood is about maintaining standards, Frank. Standards you've struggled with lately. 3 violations in 1 month is hardly struggling. 3 violations is 3 too many. It shows a pattern of disrespect that could easily escalate to property destruction. Frank stepped closer, his voice dropping. You know what shows disrespect, Karen? Treating your neighbors like criminals because someone messed with your fancy lights. Maybe if you spent less time looking for violations and more time actually talking to people like human beings, you'd have friends instead of suspects. Karen felt heat rise in her cheeks. I don't need friends, Frank. I need compliance. As she walked away, Karen heard Frank mutter something that sounded suspiciously like crazy witch. She made a mental note to investigate noise ordinance violations. Back home, Karen stood in her backyard, surveying the crime scene with fresh eyes. The broken glass had been cleaned up, but the evidence of malice remained. Someone in her perfect neighborhood harbored enough resentment to strike at the heart of what made Willowbrook Estates special. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Nice cameras. Too bad they won't help with what's coming next. Karen's blood ran cold. This wasn't over, it was just beginning.